Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Rauta's review on Indy 5. I don't know there any reason why I used that voice. Maybe my brain is just malfunctioning. Anyhow, in today's episode we have quite a different kind of releases from different countries. So without further ado, let's enter the first one, which is Spires from Manchester, Great Britain. Now, this is not a proper CD, but more like a cheap-ass version of a CD with kind of a CD or a copy. Spires is the name of the band, A Parting Gift is the name of the album. What can be said is that this is a really non-typical band and a non-typical album. A Parting Gift is released by Eulogy Media here. And, well, this four-man band is playing sort of a progressive metal with kind of a death metal-ish influences. I wouldn't say it's just progressive metal, you know, easygoing and all that stuff. Then again, it's not really death metal either. What we have here is a sort of a hybrid, kind of like an album which is sort of a phase, it seems. There are hardly any more pure death metal parts as such, because now the lengthy songs are more or less focused on creating one with, you know, clean vocals and very skilled musicianship. Lots of details which are then again very suitable if you are rehearsing for something or you just jamming around with your friends and creating something that is not even meant to go live, or maybe not even on an album. There are some growling parts which might be driving away people who are just going for the kind of a pure progressive and experimental death, or not death but metal in general, and maybe progressive rock even. But these death metal growlings are, it seems, kind of leftovers. They are kind of like mandatory thing to have here. Why, I do not truly know. They're bad as such, but they might, you know, make people go away instead of, you know, like jumping in. Because this is, after all, very much of music which is, you know, for acquired taste only. I know I keep repeating those words over and over again when I'm talking about kind of a marginal music, but that is really the case here. I mean, when songs are kind of like on average more than 10 minutes long, and they are all about kind of a, you know, musicianship and creating intrigue, ways of playing music, one reason to, you know, just pops up into my head, and this is the kind of music which are made for you and your colleagues only. This is not to reach mainstream audience, because after all, this kind of stuff is very marginal in nature. And while these guys know their instruments, you know, true, and while the production is wonderfully brilliant in the sense of, you know, you can hear all the details and little things happening and, you know, all that stuff, it is kind of a music which is really hard to get hooked into. And I found that this is kind of like a metal music for people who are really much into kind of learning new tricks and treats. Kind of like university music for people, you know, studying music at universities and colleges. Not bad album as such, but then again, not something that I eagerly go for, because it's not something that I'm like, hey, these jazzy, like, progressive, experimental parts would make very little sense in the sense of composing metal music. I mean, like, oh man, very too much stuff for my simple brain. So let's go totally different direction with Psychotomy. This is an Italian three-man, or should I say two female and one man band. Released a nice looking digipack, very dark and very red, also black and red, very traditional colors. Kind of a technical and brutal in nature, but to be honest, this band is, in my opinion, still in the kind of a demo phase. It's clear that these influences for this album are from, you know, probably early 90s. It's very typical brutal playing stuff, you know, down-tuned guitars, you know, kind of a thick sound and all that. And the growling are kind of a monotone. And once you have gone through, it's like clear that this album is creating absolutely nothing new. I mean, to the genre at least. This is something that you probably heard a million times before when you went through all those B and C class death metal bands, you know, in collections and tape trading and whatnot, and none of them became big. This is like if you remove any good parts from Suffocation and Cannibal Corpse and replace with mediocrity, then you have Psychotomy. As interesting as it is to have female players doing brutal death metal, it doesn't really help if the music is really, really mediocre. Unfortunately so. Now, next we have a Finnish band which used to go under the moniker of Treachery. Then a couple of years later, this was early 2000, you know, something, 3 or 5 or something like that. They changed the name ArchiTorture. ArchiTorture. I don't know how to say this kind of name. This is their second album called World Peace. I don't know if this is a higher level of irony, or maybe even some sarcasm. Doesn't really matter. These guys did great work with their early demos, and as well as with their previous albums, and now it's time for this duo's second full-length album, and let me tell you, it's pretty fascinating stuff. Well, not as fascinating in the terms of creating new, but this material is very much like traditional thrash metal should sound like. You know, the kind of uplifting feel and kind of aggression and, you know, up-tempo and type of classic thrash metal vocals. Beat more like Slayer, Anthrax, doesn't really matter, but kind of up-tempo stuff. Not so much as like Metallic and Megadeth, and maybe Anthrax is a bit too far away anyway, but I mean, these guys are playing thrash the very 80s way, and it kind of leaves me a sympathetic feeling, because I mean, look at this cover. It's like a kind of a comic book vibe. It's very, you know, do-it-yourself kind of style. This is even a CDR, and everything is sound like very homebrewed, so to speak. But I gotta say, these guys, while they are not creating the best of production here, and while they are not creating most original thrash metal out there, this is still something that I find really nice to listen to, because after all, there are no gimmicks, there are no stupid nonsense on this album. It is very much the thrash metal it should be. To be honest, one of the better albums this fall, and one of the rare good thrash albums I've heard entire year. Check it out if you're into thrash, definitely. Other good album on this pile is Marrasmieli from Finland also. Marras kind of pointing out to death, and also Marrasku, which is November, and Mieli being mind, so death mind or something like that. Well, you get the idea. This is their first release. It's a 2-song mini CD or EP. I don't know what they are officially calling it, but who cares? 3-man band, and they call themselves Folk Black. Well, it's kind of honest, to be honest, because while it's purely mostly Nordic 90s black metal, there's some minor parts which are kind of folkish. So by indicating that they are, you know, playing folk black, saves from them, you know, kind of like defending themselves or explaining like that's why we have those harmonica and all that stuff in the music. They are not much, but they are enough to kind of make the point. And to be honest, while I'm not a big fan of, you know, harmonica and all that stuff, they kind of fit here in the music, because most of all it's about kind of a like Finnish wintry mindset, you know, and also very much this kind of Nordic atmosphere and set of mind also. And to be honest, these guys are ready to kick some butt with this nice EP. 2 songs, about 19 minutes, so lengthy songs, so good bang for your bucks. And also I must say, if this is your first release, I don't know, I have high expectations for their full-length album, which I hope to see daylight some day in distant future. Very good start for a band. Now, last but not least, we go back to Brutality, and this one is from United States of America. Infuriate is the name of the game. I'm gonna just, rip out the CD stuff here and show it to you. And once again, these are these annoying type of jewel cases where the booklet doesn't want to come out. So Infuriate is a band made of many members in many different bands. One could even claim that this is sort of a side project because it's like 3-4 years old by now, and this is their first full-length album, and what a debut it is. While not as good in my opinion as Marrasmieli there, this one is still very, very strong. If people have ever heard a band like Cannibal Corpse, well, they are very much in game with Infuriate. Very simple in design. The CDs here, not much to see, and then we have this booklet, which is kind of obscure in nature, but then again, who gives a damn about booklet when it comes to death metal? Lyrics inside, very brown, very kind of dark feeling here. That is obviously something that goes hand in hand with this four-man band. Like I said, all these guys play in different bands. Basically, they have quite a few bands, and that leaves me to guess, is this yet another side project which is going to be left to die, or will this become something bigger? I truly hope the latter one, because, well, this 30 minutes or so brutal death metal is very much, not original, but so brutal, so technical, and so well done. It is really pleasing to, give this a spin after spin after spin. Now, this isn't exactly a game changer type of a release. That is, if you're new to the genre, I don't know how much you will get out of this. But then again, if you are a death metal fanatic and you don't mind technicality or brutality or both on same release, then this album makes a hell of a lot for you to check out. Because, like I said, if you've been through bands like Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, Cryptopsy and whatnot, then you are most likely to enjoy this one a lot. This is not so much about bands like Morbid Angel or Obituary, first because of the nature of the songs, and secondly because of different tempo, but kind of very traditional American death metal nevertheless. So not so much Dayside-ish as probably it is more of Suffocation and the kind, and Cannibal Corpse obviously, because I keep repeating it, but then you know what you're dealing with here. So brutal death metal, no gimmicks, no whatsoever that doesn't belong there. So once again, not creating the genre, kind of not redefining it, but good addition to that piece of stuff. So Infuriate, your cup of choice. So to sum up this Indie 5, we have some good death metal, we have some good black metal, and we have some good thrash metal. The ones in the beginning, not so much. You can skip them and focus on the last three of this particular video. Now it's time for me to head to the weekend, so see you soon with more reviews on Rauta. Cheers!